Welcome to SysEng Quick. My name is John, and today I'll show you how to write a custom Ansible module. Writing your own modules is a great way to extend the functionality of Ansible beyond what you can find in the built-in collections or published on Ansible Galaxy. It's one of the reasons Ansible is such a popular automation platform. Let's get started. In the previous video, we spent some time refactoring the git-config role. Currently, it's only capable of templating the user who connected to the server. In other words, the Ansible user. I'd like to make this role a bit more generic and allow you to specify which user's git-config file gets templated. So let's make a few changes in this role. Currently, we're placing the .gitconfig file in the user's home directory, and we're getting the home directory with the Ansible user dir fact. Now that's fine when the user is the one connecting to the server. However, this won't quite work if we want to supply our own user. For instance, what user dir is this gathering when it gathers a fact? Well, it's whatever user you are at the time you gather the fact. So if we were to change it over here, it wouldn't be the right user directory. We could use a become plugin and switch to the user we want to template, and that would get us the proper user directory. Although I don't like that solution because it changes facts when you're running things, and that means a fact is kind of unstable. It would work, but it's not my preference. Another option could be to use the user module. If you are paying close attention, you may have noticed that this is not the way we gathered the home directory when we first created this. And if you're paying very close attention, you'll notice this wasn't even what we did in the last video. I just didn't highlight that. So, what are we going to do instead? Well, this is where our custom module comes in. I want to write something that will get us the user's information based on information we supply at the time. That way, we won't change the facts, and it'll be a good explanation of a simple custom module. Let's go ahead and create our custom module. Let's go to our File Explorer. In our Plugins folder, we'll make a new file under the Modules directory, and we need a name for our module. I'm going to call this module user_info.py. This is our first custom module. And I'm going to copy some template boiler code from the Ansible website. Let's go ahead and go up here, and there's a lot of stuff in here, and a lot of things I actually don't want in here. So they recommend putting these documentation strings inside your Python module. I understand why they do that, and historically it makes sense and was the only option. I don't really like that, because having these YAML documents in here makes it hard to work with the file. I also think it makes the file a bit busier than it needs to be, although there is something to be said for keeping your documentation with your code. We're going to keep it alongside the code, but not inside the Python file. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Now at the top, it's got a copyright notice. So we'll just change this to copyright 2024. We'll put my name in there and my email address. Okay, up at the top, you see it has a shebang and it's got user bin Python. Don't we use Python 3 now? Is that still correct? Yes, and it is very, very important that you not change this line in any way. Ansible actually fixes this line for you based on the interpreter it finds on the remote server. Never change this line. It must be exactly this, #bang/user/bin/python. I know it won't be the actual interpreter you're going to use, but that's okay. Ansible will figure this stuff out for you. Okay, let's go ahead and scroll down and see what else is in here. The module is actually pretty simple. It's a full Python script that runs the main method when it's called. The main method calls run module. We could just put things inside main and it wouldn't hurt, but we'll just follow their template for now. It's fine like it is. Run module does a few things with defining module arguments. it defines this result object, which we're going to turn into our results and send back to our Ansible playbook. We create the module with the Ansible module class. We see if we're doing check mode, and if we are, we exit without doing anything. We make some changes. We tell it that we've changed, and then we give it a module.exit JSON. This is all a bit complicated at first, but if you read things, it's pretty straightforward. All we have to do is take whatever action we want, create this result object with whatever parameters we need, most important ones being changed and message, and then do module exit JSON with the destructured version of this result object. The first thing we'll do is define our own module arguments. So we'll say module arguments equals a dictionary. We're going to have one argument, the username property, and that is going to be a dictionary, and then we define the type. The type in this case is going to be a string, and we are going to have it be required. That's going to be a true Boolean. So everything there is our only argument. We can give it defaults, but of course we don't have a default username. We can go ahead and delete this. Now you might have noticed they use dict instead of the dictionary syntax. Honestly, it probably doesn't matter. I've read things that say this is faster than this, although realistically, you'll probably never notice that in real-world applications. Let's go ahead and delete their template boilerplate, and let's keep going. So here they are seeding the result dictionary, so let's go ahead and do that. Here is our result. Again, I want to say changed, and that is going to be false. I need to quote that in here. And then we're going to have our message, and that's going to be empty for now. We'll go ahead and remove that. Let's actually add a message at this point, because if we need to bail out, this will probably be a failure. So let's say failed to fetch user information. So if we were to return right now, we would just give it an error message, and we would say failed equals false. So we'll go ahead and add the failed property as well, and we'll change that a little bit later if we actually succeed. Now here's where we create our Ansible module. We give it the module arguments, and we decide whether or not we support check mode. Since our module isn't actually changing anything, we can support check mode just fine, because, check mode just means don't make changes, and we aren't making any changes. I'll go ahead and remove their boilerplate comments, and we'll go down here. So next, they'd say, if we are in check mode, go ahead and exit now. We're not quite ready to do that yet because we haven't gathered the user information. We need to go ahead and make sure we get that before we go and exit. So let's go ahead and go up here, and let's import a Python module. So the module I want to use is pwd. This is the password module in Python, and it should work on any Unix system. So Debian, macOS, whatever. So before we go down to check mode, let's get our user information. We'll put this in a try block, and I'll say user info equals pwd.getPasswordName. And we're going to get the module arguments of the username. You can see a little bit lower, we get our parameters with the module.parameters field. So let's do that and change this to username. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, if we get a key error, we're going to go ahead and exit now, and that will tell us that we failed to fetch the user information. So to exit the module, we call module exit JSON. Let's go ahead and do that, and there we go. We have now exited if we fail to get the user information. Otherwise, we have our user information, and we can supply that inside our result field. So if we made it this far, we no longer failed, and our message can be changed. So let's go ahead and change our properties. So failed now equals false, and our message now equals successfully fetched user information. So if we're in check mode, we can go ahead and exit here, although realistically, we're in check mode no matter what. So we don't need a special condition to exit. We simply need to place our results in our message and exit there. So what we're going to do is add these attributes from our user info to our message. So let's say result user info equals, and it's going to be a dictionary of username, which is going to be userinfo.pw name. We'll give it the pw user ID is userinfo.pw uid. I want the group ID as well, so that's userinfo password gid, and I want the home directory. So we'll say the home directory is userinfo pw, what is it, dir? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so now we have our user information in our result. And we can basically just go ahead and exit our module here, regardless of whether or not we're in check mode. We never do anything with change, so we don't need to set the parameter of change to be anything other than what it is. The rest of this simply isn't important. We'll go ahead and close that, and let's save this file. And let's see here. It says there's an error in our file. Let's go check what that is. It's nothing. Flake 8 is complaining about the length of this line. We can turn off the Flake 8 warning by adding no QA E501, the error code we get in Flake, with a couple of spaces and a comment field at the end. So that will fix that. We no longer have any errors, so this module should be good to go. Let's go ahead and see if we can try it out. Let's go to the command line and we'll do Ansible-m syseng quick tutorial.userinfo. I'm going to give it an argument. My username is going to be VS Code. And we'll run this against the local host. Let's see what happens. And yes, we successfully fetched our user information, our user info, we got our GID, our UID, our home directory, and the username. Looks like it's working to me. Remember all those doc strings I removed from this Python file? Let's go ahead and add them back to our YAML documentation instead. We're going to create another file called userinfo.yml, and we'll go in here, and we need to add 3 keys. The first one is the documentation key. It must be in all capitals. So it's similar to an argument spec. We have this module property called userinfo. We can give it a short description, and we'll say gathers information about a user account. I don't really have anything to say about the description other than what I put in short description, but they are required fields, so we have to have both of them. For the author field, it's going to be me, so let's go ahead and add that. And now we have our options for our module parameters. We have only the one, it's our username field, which is a type of string. Required is going to be true, and we'll give it a description as well. And we'll say the username to gather information for. Next is the examples field, and this is just a string, so we'll give it a multi-line string. We're going to give it a comment, and we'll say get information about the VS Code user, and we'll show you what you do in a playbook. Gather information about VS Code. We would go to syseng quick tutorial.user_info, and then we'd supply the username of VS Code. There you go, our one and only example. Lastly, we have the return field, and this is a dictionary. So this is all of the arguments that we return from our module. In our case, it's going to be the user info field. The type is going to be a dictionary. We need to give it a description. We'll say the user information gathered from the remote system. It is always return, so I'll say always, and we'll give a sample of the data. So user info looks kind of like this. We give it a GID, we give it a home, which is VS Code, we have a UID, and we have a username. Okay, there is our documentation. Let's go see how that looks on the command line. On the terminal, we'll do Ansible-doc syseng quick tutorial tutorial.user_info. And there we have documentation for our module, just like if we were doing real work. Let's add another option to our argument spec. This is going to be getConfig_user. The type is going to be string. It is not required. And the default value is going to be the user running Ansible. So it'll be VS Code or Ansible or, whoever we can find. And we'll give it a description property as well. And we'll say the user whose get config will be templated. Okay, there's our option. Let's go make our default value for this. Back in our File Explorer, let's go to our defaults file, and we'll go ahead and add this. So we have, that's not there anymore. Neither is that. Okay, we'll have get config user, and we're going to default to our Ansible user. So that's going to be a Jinja expression of Ansible user. Let's go ahead and add that. And if we don't have that, then I'm going to say I want to look up the environment variable called user. So we're going to do a lookup on Ansible built-in.env, and I want the user property. So there we go. We'll either fall back to a user who ran Ansible if we're running on localhost, or we'll take the Ansible user if we're on a remote host. So there we go, we have a default value now. Now that we have a user, let's go ahead and change this. We'll use our new module, sysengquick.tutorial.user_info, and we're going to give it the username that we've been given by the user or from our defaults. So there's our user, and I need to store the result of the outcome of running this module. We can do that by using the register field. We'll register this to the result variable. So let's go ahead and change our destination. It's going to be result user info homedir. And that's where our destination will be if the user doesn't specify this, which maybe they want to place it somewhere else. So let's go ahead and copy this field, and let's go back into our role defaults. We'll go ahead and say that getConfig_dest is going to default to this value. There we go. We've got a default now. So we'll go ahead and place this as what we're going to get. So it should be getConfig_dest. Okay. We'll go ahead and say if you want to specify the mode for some reason, we'll let you do that as well. So we'll do one more thing, and we'll say getConfig_mode, which defaults to 644. Let's just change that, getConfig mode, and now we're being very generic with all of our stuff. Now, to be able to write this file in the correct place, we might need to become a different user. If we're writing as a different user, we would need different privileges to be able to write to their home directory. So let's say we're going to become someone else, but not necessarily root. We actually want to say, I want to become whatever user we specified. So we'll do getConfig_user in this become user property. Okay, I think that all should work. So why don't we go ahead and try it out. On the command line, we'll do Ansible playbook sysengquick tutorial getConfig, and we will target the local host. So targets equal localhost, and I won't specify a user, we'll just be the VS Code user. Let's go ahead and see if this works. It appears I've made a small problem in the default getConfig user. Let's go ahead and fix that real quick and get rid of that new line. Let's go back over here to our defaults. And I specified it like this, but actually I wanted that instead. Let's go see if that works now. There we go, that looks better. So let's go to our getConfig. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. So this does appear to work. I added a new server to our servers list, a CentOS 8 stream host. Let's go ahead and see if that works. So let's go ahead and run the playbook again, and we'll target CentOS 8 star. And let's see if that works. It says it did. Let's do Ansible with the command module, and we'll say I want to give it the argument cat getConfig, and again we'll target CentOS 8 star. Yeah, looks pretty good to me, and it's using the Ansible user in there. And I can prove that if I do a whoami command. Before we go, I'd like to mention the dependencies key inside our galaxy.yaml file for our collection. We've been adding our requirements to a requirements.yaml file, but if you actually want to specify dependencies, they should go in this file instead. So let's go ahead and make that change. We're going to take the collections from our dependencies and add them to this dictionary. So there is the name, and here is our version. Same thing for community general. We'll go ahead and copy the key, and again we'll give it this version string. We no longer need this requirements.yaml file. We can go ahead and delete that. Let me go to the file browser, and then I will delete that. Now in our Docker file, we need to change this. First of all, we no longer have a requirements file. So let's go ahead and change that. It's actually going to be collections, Ansible collections, syseng quick tutorial galaxy.yaml. And rather than run our requirements file, we're going to install the collection from galaxy YAML, which is in the current directory. There is one more small change we need to make. This is going to install a basically empty collection into our .ansible collections folder. That will conflict with the one we're developing with. So in our dev container, we're going to remove the collection it installs so that we only have the dependencies. To do that, we'll do rm/rf /ansible collections syseng quick tutorial. Okay, that looks like it should work. Let's go to the terminal and try it out. We'll go over here and we'll run docker build, give it the tag and the Docker file with the current context. There we go, it's installing our collection. It removed our collection that it installed and just kept the dependencies. So if we do docker run rmit, and I need that tag that I built, so that's right here, and I'll say bin bash. So let's go to Ansible collections, and we have our syseng quick folder, but there's nothing in there. We should be able to use this container just with our dependencies. So if I say poetry run Ansible galaxy collection list, wrong workspace, hang on, try that again. Yes, we have our collections. And once I mount the workspace directory, we'll have our real collection installed in our workspace directory. So this all worked. And that's how you create a custom Ansible module in Python. I hope you found today's video helpful. If you did, go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. They really help out the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.